Welcome back, San Diego Comic-Con people. It is 2022. It's been 3 years since we stood on this bridge to record this video that we've done every year, I think, since Parks and Cons has existed, or at least the YouTube channel, to talk about some of the things outside Comic-Con. Not specifically like every offsite. I mean, we don't know that. We're shooting this at the end of June, but to talk about some of the strategies that go into it, to hit things like parking and the trolleys. We're just going to hit a ton of different tips and things to try to help you out. So this has been an annual video until obviously the last few years where there was no Comic-Con. So we are so excited to be back. So excited to see the tents return and see offsites pop up and all the other things that are going to pop up with Comic-Con. I will say this, because we're filming this video as we always do, 3 weeks out before Comic-Con, there is so much that's going to be announced between now and then. So follow along with the SDCC unofficial blog for announcements, outside Comic-Con for announcements. We'll be putting things on Twitter, of course, the Comic-Con International's official channels, and just follow along for all of that information, because there's going to be so much even announced during the con, especially with the way this year's going. One thing to remember about Comic-Con in 2022 is these are strange days. Obviously, we've been in a really strange place the last several years. We can expect it to be a little bit different type of con this year, and there's going to be, it's almost like if you're a Big Brother fan, expect the unexpected. I think there's going to be some changes, some differences and things like that, and obviously so much is going to be about kind of going with the flow. That said, as we're recording this now, we can only go off of the information that we've had in the past from all of these years of attending. And so I'm sure as we come back here in 2023, we'll have different things to say maybe than we do today. Remember, with all of the things going on this year, that the world has changed a lot. There's always the challenge of short-term labor when it comes to Comic-Con's convention in the summer, but this year even more with all that's going on. I mean, it's hard to find a place these days, whether it's food, any of the service industries, etc., that aren't hiring right now. So that's going to probably be a challenge throughout, and so kind of keep that in mind as we go. Remember that all these offsites we're going to talk about, they're all temporary, and even the booths inside Comic-Con, these are all temporary. People are working outside of their comfort zone in a lot of ways, and where theme parks have weeks, months, years to correct things in terms of operational issues, these things have like no time at all. If they figure it out by Sunday, then it's time to tear things down. So you've got to expect some challenges there, and we'll talk a little about how to maybe navigate some of those things. Make sure to rely very much on Twitter for your updates throughout the con. Even if you're not a Twitter person, just make one for the next month, use it, and then you can delete it after. But so much is going to change and be announced as we go along, and so follow along with us there as well. Now, we are expecting a lot of streamers to be involved. With the changes in the world, obviously some places did better, some places did worse. A lot of the streamers did really well, so we know, and we'll talk about some of those in the leading up weeks as well, specific offsites and things like that. But you can expect a lot of life going on at the convention, whether it be inside on the convention floor or more outside, and some of the strategies we'll talk about here. So, perseverance, networking, two most important things with Comic-Con. Make sure to stick with it. Make sure to ask people for help and keep going, and don't give up on anything as you're going through this con weekend, because it does get hectic, and probably even more hectic this year. Now, a quick thing before we move from this spot is, once again, if you've been to Comic-Con in the past, they started a new thing, what was it, 2018, 2019, of closing down Harbor between, I believe it's First and Park. So once again, that's going to be closed, and it's going to be access for badge holders. So if you're going to be here and not having a badge, I know we have a lot of people that follow along that just want to come down and do the offsites. They're maybe not going to be going into the convention that weekend. Make sure to understand that you're going to have that closure going on over there. Once again, we have a separate video up on the channel all about the shuttle drop-offs and kind of how that's going to be impacted by the COVID-19 check and things like that, but we are anticipating that front area there to be utilized for that. And again, more information directly from Comic-Con International in the weeks ahead. So with that said, let's move down the bridge a little bit and talk about what has been often called, or is most commonly called at least, the PetCo Interactive Zone. All right, over the years, the PetCo Interactive Zone has kind of been a favorite spot for us. Not that there's even all that many offsites that we've gone there, but we just kind of love that it's always this like collage of random properties coming together. It's just like this crazy, weird outdoor convention on its own. And sometimes it's really big time businesses there promoting things, and sometimes it's just like one-off vendors and artsy things and stuff. So it's always kind of fun to check out what's going there. Now, we don't have any announcements about that as of now, but we want to use this spot as kind of just talking generally about some things related to offsites, whether it be PetCo Interactive or some of the other ones. Before we get to that though, parking. If you've not already taken parking and you're going to be somebody coming down here needing parking spaces, make sure to check in with ACE. There's always parking left after the lottery system. We've seen a lot of people reaching out that said, I didn't get selected for the lottery. How do I get parking? There are always spots left that way. Also, you can use the shuttles. You can use the trolleys. There's a lot of different ways. I think my biggest advice, if you're somebody that doesn't have kind of your transportation situation resolved already as you're watching this video, is just make sure to plan it before you're in the car. The worst thing you can do is drive down down here. I know for us, our first Comic-Con was 2005. We did just that. We drove down here and we're like, oh, we'll just park at the convention center. And even in those days, that didn't work. By the time we got down here, we had to park like way out and overpay. So just try to make sure to take care of that. And you can check out if you're somebody coming in on the shuttles, like you're staying out in Mission Valley or something like that. We talk about the shuttle drop-off right over here by PetCo. We talk about the drop-off over at Manchester as well. You can check all of those things out there. Now, in terms of the offsites themselves, and it does come into, you know, the PetCo interactive zone of days of the past, is remember that as the weekend goes on, the offsites normally only get busier. Like Saturday and Sunday are brutal at these offsites. And so not to say that Thursday and Friday are not as well. And the challenge with Thursday is a lot of times places are still setting up the offsites. So we highly encourage, again, using Twitter to figure out what the situation is. I know for us, if we're gonna go like wait in a line for an offsite, we always are checking Twitter and seeing, okay, what's it look like over there before we make the trek over there. We normally suggest trying to hit offsites Friday morning if you can. That way Friday morning they've hopefully maybe resolved a couple of the issues from Thursday or finished the build from Thursday. You've got an idea of the time commitment and then come out on Friday and do it that way. That said, Thursday can be a good time as well. Again, as you come to Saturday and Sunday, you're gonna have a lot of people that live in the San Diego area that have the weekend off. They're not going to Comic-Con, but they're gonna come and check this out. And I know particularly the PetCo Interactive's been one of those. It's got a ton of people there that don't have badges. Maybe they're not really here for Comic-Con per se, but they're here for any of the sort of the outdoor things going on there. Remember to have your badge with you if you are a badge holder. A lot of times the offsites will give preference to the people with badges, not always. Some even say they're required. So for example, just an hour ago from recording this, House of the Dragon from HBO was announced to be coming here over in the MLK Park area there. And it says specifically that badge will be required. Now we know from the past from the HBO activations that has kind of waned as it's come into Sunday and things like that, but it's important to kind of remember to have it on you and make sure to do some homework in advance and check if any of that information's out there. Definitely don't get into line without knowing what the situation is. I mean, that's just a general kind of tip that we give throughout the weekend with everything you do, is always check, double check, and often triple check those things. Now, a lot of times there is night entertainment in the offsite world as well. This is another spot where in the past there have been different, you know, movies under the star type situations and things like that, so keep an eye out for those. But remember, whatever the offsite is, most are going to have a big time commitment. Whether you're going to signings in the convention, waiting for a panel, an exclusive, or a popular offsite, they all have time commitments. So make sure, we know sometimes we'll have people reach out that are disappointed because they're like, well, I went to go do this offsite and it was a 3-hour wait, and you kind of have to weigh that in. And we have seen a trend in the last 5 years, let's say, last couple years of Comic-Con, of just focusing in on more of the interactive and kind of immersive theater. Even I'm including in that outside of Comic-Con, just in the world at large. I mean, the Stranger Things experience we went to during the pandemic, a drive-through, went to so many drive-through kind of immersive theater experiences. And so the thing about immersive theater, as much as we love it and we are huge fans of it, as we do a lot of haunt stuff with it, it's a really tough thing at Comic-Con. But, you know, the things like American Horror Story back in 2019 were fantastic, but very, very low capacity. So you have to kind of weigh that in too. You'll probably have this incredible experience. House of the Dragon feels like one of those more immersive type experiences as well, where it's going to probably be quite a wait to get in, but you'll probably get a really cool experience and you'll have that to remember for always. So that may end up being like the only thing you do on a Friday or a Thursday or whatever it might be there. So keep that all in mind as well. All right, with that said, let's go ahead and move to the next spot. All right, real quick, we did want to address some of the kind of ground transportation here, and we're over here at one of the parking stalls for the e-scooters. We know there's been a lot of questions about the e-scooters. In 2019, when we were down here filming these types of videos, people were zooming around all over. In 2022, we haven't seen it much, and so I Googled the other day, and like, what's going on with that? And if you Google e-scooter San Diego, you'll find a lot of information there about some of the new sanctions that have come into play. I believe they've limited it only to 4 different companies that are allowed, but a big part of it also is parking in designated spots. So this is one of those designated spots, so there shouldn't be any more of them just kind of dropped off, and the companies seem to get fined pretty big if they do. So if you're an e-scooter fan, less places you're going to be able to drive, and it's going to be a little harder to find them. If you're not an e-scooter fan, if you've had everyone kind of almost take you out on the walkway there, you'll probably be happy to see a lot less of them, I'm guessing, during Comic-Con. We also wanted to note, a lot of times, you know, if you're staying out further out, let's say by Horton or things like that, I mean, for us, we're always just walking. Like, our whole default is just walk, walk, walk. But for others that want to take the Pedicabs, those are an option. A lot of times they're fun and themed, and a lot of those people are out there just trying to make a living They need the tips, so it seems like a really fun thing to do. And if you're somebody that maybe has any mobility challenges, particularly, you just want to save your feet, the Pedicab can be a not so bad of an option as well. If you want to kind of stay close to the ground, you don't want to jump in an Uber or something like that, and still be able to kind of see the sights in kind of a little bit faster than walking way, but it doesn't put any wear and tear on you. All right, we've made our way here, not too far from the Hilton gas lamp, across from Hall B of the Convention Center. We wanted to talk about a few things. First off, the Manchester Grand Hyatt and the Marriott. Make sure to keep an eye on what sort of official Comic-Con related activities they have going on, because they're always prominent parts of the convention and have some really cool, interesting things there. You can find the art show over there at the 2021 special edition. We went over there to play pinball in one of the gaming rooms there, board games, so many different things. Fulfillment room has been over in one of those spots in the past as well. So point being is just make sure to keep an eye on those. I know as an early attendee, a lot of our friends will kind of just gloss over that and not really think about what's going on at those two hotels, but a lot of things happen over there that are official and can be really a lot of fun to kind of add to your overall day. And we found a lot of things over there in general have not been as crowded or packed as a lot of Comic-Con is, and it's been kind of refreshing, some of the activities there. The other thing we want to point out, if you are coming in on the trolley here, if you're going to use the MTS that way, there is the Convention Center drop-off here, which kind of matches up with Hall A, and then you'll go and cross the street, and you'll kind of be in front of the Marriott there. We normally suggest for that, though, instead to exit at the gas lamp option, which is further down, and puts you more where the lineups are in the morning. So if you're coming, I mean, everything is more down that way, generally speaking. And I know a lot of people are heading towards that Hall H line or the everything else line, etc. It's a little bit easier of a walk, and I think maybe even more so this year with so many people coming from the Manchester in terms of the shuttle drop-offs there. So, you know, think about that of where you want to get dropped off in those. Another thing just to note with this area is this gets really crowded, particularly on the Saturday and Sunday, but generally there can be some fun, though, pop-up type of off-site activations over here as well. So we always like to walk through here, but also know there's oftentimes we find a lot of like unofficial off-sites as well, or unofficial things like people just kind of popping up and making it like a swap meet and selling comics or bracelets or things like that. So it's a very eclectic mix over here, and so make sure to kind of pay attention to where you're at so you don't get hustled out of anything with any of the different vendors that might be over here. But it is a fun place to kind of check out all the way around. Did want to note over here, Hilton gas lamp, a good example of one of the things we found, and we talked about this some in some of the live shows we've been doing. I feel like we've talked about it in a few different places with these videos we've been doing this year. But one thing to note is sometimes places aren't bought out, and what we found in the last couple years particularly is they're still kind of stepping up and kind of trying to offer a Comic-Con themed thing of their own. So Gaslamp, Hilton Gas Lamp in 2018, DC Universe was there, did a big buyout in the center, all sorts of fun stuff in the middle of that hotel kind of area there. In 2019, that did not come, so they did their own thing. They're, you know, I don't know if it was in tandem with other entities, but they kind of did their own thing there, where they took over the area and they had food, drink, charging stations, air conditioning. And one thing at Comic-Con, I know for us, is we would always, you know, love to be in some activation by Amazon or HBO or whatever, but if we can just find a place to sit in air conditioning and some food and beverage are available, even if we're paying, you know, 15 bucks for a burger and a soda or something, we are big fans of that if it has a minimum weight. And so we found that to be a real sanctuary many times. So even though it wasn't an official like activation with, you know, like back in the day when Netflix was there or something like that, we still probably utilized it more in 2019 than we had even when it was one of those big offsites. So it's something to kind of keep an eye on. A lot of food options down here. Just want to plug, we did a whole separate video on Gaslamp food options. We've also done some videos specifically of Seaport Village. We've talked about the Ralphs and kind of the offerings there. So we've been putting out a lot of content for our Patreon subscribers there. We've had bonus stuff going over there about some food options as well. So lots and lots of food options. We'll continue to tweet them out as well and post them on social and things like that, but did want to plug those to check out as well. So with that being said, let's head across the tracks. All right, real quick, we wanted to talk about kind of making your way behind the convention center, and specifically like the Bayfront area and the park and everything there. We don't know at this time of recording if FX is going to be back. We know FX has a huge presence there. We know Adult Swim has had a huge presence over there as well. As of this recording, Adult Swim is going to be doing a thing in Philadelphia in early August. So, you know, we'll see with those. One thing just kind of wanted to stress at this point, though, is remember that whatever changes we may have at Comic-Con in 2022, for those of us that are maybe longtime attendees, remember that this doesn't mean that it's going to be that way in 23 or 24 or whatever. I think there's a lot of things. We're in a very strange world. We started out the video kind of talking about that, but we're in a very strange world right now. And so I don't think anything this year is really indicative of things to necessarily expect in 23 or 24. That said, we have always loved this Bayfront area. We've loved going to Vela in the old days. Now Hudson and Nash is there as a new restaurant. We put up some content with that in the past few weeks there. There's also an article over on the SDCC unofficial blog where you can look closer at what they're offering. Their bar area up top is beautiful. There's so much about the Bayfront, kind of how they handle Comic-Con, that we've really been fans of, particularly back in, I think it was 2019 and maybe 2018 as well. But as the Fox Sports Grill kind of left, which was a place we always like to visit, but as it left, they started using that again as kind of their own kind of grab and go, where they have the buffet inside and stuff, just more options for air conditioning eating opportunities without huge lines. So they might be a fix during the con. They sounded very confident, management, when they were on the SDCC unofficial blogs podcast recently, about like they were gonna, you know, do it. They're serving up food, and so I know that's going to be one of the first places we're going to be checking out through the convention weekend to see what they have. Sweet Things SD is over there. They have in fantastic Dole Whips, all sorts of great drinks. They're offering an online ordering option, so if they have that, or they will have that, you know, make sure to utilize that. But anywhere that offers anything that you're able to kind of book in advance and kind of mobile order, we highly suggest checking that out and using that. Did want to point out, with these ships behind us here, there are often autograph opportunities there. There's a lot of autograph hunters that hang out and kind of wait for people to depart the various ships that show up during Comic-Con, particularly in the days of the IMDb boat there. So that may be a place where you're able to get a good look at a celebrity there. But I mean, I got close to like McAvoy and most of the cast of it just by haphazardly walking across the front of the Omni. So you just never know where you're going to bounce into these celebrities. But you know, make sure to have your camera ready, your phone ready to snap some pictures if you can, and kind of take in all of that experience as well. All right, so we've got Comic-Con coming. Couldn't be more excited. I mean, seeing the sales pavilion there, that's like one of my favorite views in the world, is just looking at the sales pavilion there. So glad, so excited, so grateful for all the work Comic-Con International, all the staff, the volunteers, attendees, the exhibitors that are coming, the artists, just that everybody's putting to make this convention happen. It has been such a strange few years that we've had here in America and the world as a whole. And so to bring this event back together, I think is going to be very special for everyone. I think long-time attendees, it's going to mean something different than first-time attendees, but I think for everybody, it's going to be a really special time. So we hope that you can really take it all in, soak it in, and make sure to make this about a big picture of fun of the weekend. Do remember, everything at Comic-Con takes work, and I always say, I think that's why Comic-Con is so special and there's so much love for it, is nothing is easy there. It takes a lot of work to get the tickets, hotels, parking, pay for airfare, particularly in these days. There's so many things that go into it. And so once you're at the con, it's easy to have meltdowns over the crowds or over, you know, not getting an exclusive or getting into a panel, but really try to weigh it all in and remember all that you did, particularly this time around, this 3 years that we've gone through to get back to this place and be at the convention center, celebrating things that we all love so much, you know, DC, Marvel, anime, Planet of the Apes, Star Wars, whatever it is, there's just so much out there that we all love. And we'll be able to celebrate it here in this great building with all of these great people. Do remember also to try to crowdsource as much as you can. I really cannot overstate the importance of Twitter for utilizing information. What is the line like for this celebrity? What's the line like for this panel? Where we're standing right now is a spot where we got in line for Hall H many years ago on a Saturday at 7:30 in the morning. Saturday Hall H shouldn't be able to get in. People were so beat down from Star Wars the night before, we were able to get in, and we saw Deadpool and Justice League or whatever. But it was just a full day of great content, and it was all just not part of the plan, but it was something that happened organically because the opportunity made itself available and we seized it. Make sure to have a plan, but do not be shy about deviating from the plan. That's really important to us. We like to go in and we have like every minute of every day planned out, and then we're really okay with throwing away 100% of it if something better comes along, or just something that is a better fit for us, or takes less time, or is more, you know. And so make sure to try to be flexible and think about what your goals are. I know for me, like when it comes to offsites, the Orville experience in 2019 was like perfect to me. Like you went in, it was big, it was large capacity, they could get a lot of people in at a time, they had all sorts of costumes and props out. We were able to get a book as swag when we left, like that's a big thing, and I loved it. American Horror Story with FX, loved it. It was so much fun, this kind of haunted house that they built there, but very low capacity, and the only reason we were able to do it is because we had a press invite to it, and we were able to just go in and do it, which I loved. It was a great memory of Comic-Con. But if I had to wait 5 hours in line line for it, I don't know that that's how I would want to spend 5 hours at Comic-Con. So you have to make those decisions for yourself. You know, with having the Game of Thrones prequel there, House of the Dragon, that is going to be a high demand location, and so you'll just have to decide like how important is that to me, and make sure just to feel good about whatever that decision is, if that is that one thing a day that you're really going to make as that value. I think last big thing I have here is just make sure to get the amount of rest, eating, hydration, all of those things. I know a lot of people are like, oh, you don't sleep at Comic-Con, you don't eat at Comic-Con, you don't drink water at Comic-Con. Carmel and I have always been really big on finding time for meals. Like every day we have at least one actual sit down a meal. It doesn't mean that it's a restaurant, but like it could be sitting down at a grab and go, but like actually sitting down and not eating in line or things like that. We always make sure to try to get at least 6 hours of sleep, hopefully more, sometimes a little bit less, but all of those things. And part of why I stress that though is like, we've never been, I'm always so scared to say this because I feel like we're gonna jinx ourselves, but we've never been sick at Comic-Con. We've never been sick after Comic-Con. It's like, we just kind of roll through, and I always credit a lot of that to, you know, we're able to kind of build in that time and make sure that we don't leave it being so drained that we're not able to enjoy it. So with that said, we hope you have a fantastic San Diego Comic-Con. We have a lot more comic content coming up on the channel here. We already have 10, 11, 12 videos on the playlist. Please check those out. There's a lot more specifics in terms of some of the restaurant opportunities and things like that out there. We will be doing more live chats. We will have videos non-stop throughout the con as well. So please follow along with us. And until next time, we'll see you in line somewhere.